musty gyms, broken toilets, or boring teachers. Unfortunately, this is often the bitter reality at our schools. It's no wonder that many students can hardly wait for their school days to end. But there are also schools where everyday life is quite different. So today, we're going to show you 8 crazy schools that really exist. Included are schools where very permissive teachers instruct and schools where things are extremely strict. You'll also find out at which school magic spells are seriously rehearsed. It's going to be very exciting here at Wonderlane. Travel around the world, get to know the most beautiful countries in the world, and go to school with your best friends on a luxurious ship? You think that doesn't exist? Then you are completely wrong, because exactly such a school or such a program actually exists. The Semester at Sea was launched in 1963 and is currently run by Colorado State University. Every year, up to 600 students from all over the world can participate, and those who are lucky enough to actually land on the ship can expect not only a luxurious cruise ship with pools and a lively party atmosphere. Instead, students will travel once around the world in about 100 days, visiting up to 13 countries in Asia, Africa, Europe, South America, and North America along the way. During their journey, students are taught a range of subjects and disciplines while special guest lecturers await them upon arrival at each port. Speakers and lecturers in past years have included history-making figures such as Fidel Castro, Indira Gandhi, Michael Gorbachev, Nelson Mandela, and Mother Teresa. Anyone who now thinks that this program is just the thing should bring along the necessary small change. 3 months on the school ship costs the equivalent of up to 28,000 euros. Number 7. The Summer Olympics in Tokyo have once again shown that China is one of the best sports nations in the world. And there's a good reason for this. Because there are around 3,000 sports schools in China where more than 500,000 children are currently being trained to become Olympic stars. One of them is the Chen Jinglun Sports School in Hangzhou. Here, children as young as 4 receive up to 10 hours of intensive coaching per day. And the coaches are not exactly squeamish. Some training sessions are even reminiscent of tough military training, and the boys and girls are pushed to the limits of their physical strength every day. The focus is not only on the sports sessions themselves, a strict diet plan is also followed. At the school in Hangzhou, around 900 children are recruited each year from nursery schools all over the city. And some are even lured to the city from rural villages with the promise of sporting glory and wealth for their families. However, only a few of them become truly successful, as just 10% of the children can later hope for a national or even an international sports career. For most of the others, the future doesn't look too bright. Because school focuses almost exclusively on athletic performance, most students have no opportunities on the normal job market after graduation. Many even end up on the streets and keep their heads above water with cabaret acts. Number 6. Let's continue with a school that is unique in Germany, and probably even the whole world. We're talking about the Hermann Hesse Educational Center, which is also referred to in the media as the addict classroom. The reason? At the school in Frankfurt, former addicts are given a second chance. Here, they can catch up on their school-leaving exams in a protected space and are also supported by social workers if they have private problems. But narcotic substances are strictly taboo, even outside school hours. To ensure that they adhere to this, a contract is drawn up in advance in which the young people must agree to provide urine samples at any time. But this only happens if there is a concrete suspicion. But besides the risk of relapse, the young people also suffer from many psychological and cognitive problems triggered by the substances. More than half of the students have an illness such as schizophrenia, ADHD, or borderline, as well as their addiction problem. They often have trouble concentrating and have a hard time remembering class material. But the teachers have adjusted well to this, and a 6-month introductory phase allows the young people to get used to their new regular routine. And the success of the students proves the teachers right. More than 2/3 of them manage to graduate, and many of them even graduate from high school. And so that they can enter the world of work without prejudice, the name of another school appears on their school report. Let us now turn to an elementary school that is not particularly unusual in itself, but the way to school that the small children have to take on every day is. We are talking about the elementary school below the small village of Adler in the Chinese province of Sichuan. Adler is located on a cliff about 800 meters high and is completely cut off from the outside world. For a long time, the only way to the school was via an extremely dilapidated bamboo ladder attached directly to the precipice. Every day, the students of the village had to take this life-threatening path to reach their school class. While doing so, they had no safety device whatsoever and were usually completely on their own. In 2016, the Chinese media became aware of the situation and the government took up the cause. They changed the dilapidated bamboo ladder and replaced it with a steel ladder. For the villagers who incidentally also have to take the dangerous route for their shopping, doctor's appointments, and even to deliver their babies, the situation has improved fundamentally. But by our standards, this route to school is probably anything but safe. No walls, no pencils, and above all, no heavy books. Anyone entering Årstad High School in Copenhagen for the first time can hardly imagine that they have just entered a normal school, because Årstad High School is anything but normal. It is the world's first digital high school that manages completely without classrooms or traditional teaching materials. Instead, each of the approximately 1,200 students has their own laptop. They have round-the-clock access to the internet and all important learning materials that are uploaded directly to a cloud by the teacher. Learning usually takes place in small groups somewhere on the school grounds or in specially equipped sofa corners, because there is no classroom or even a teacher's room at this special school. The students can also determine their own learning pace, because they can access the recorded learning materials at any time and repeat it over and over again. It is no wonder that the school is extremely popular. Every year, several hundred students have to be rejected. With 1,200 school children, this high school has already reached its limits. We continue now with a school in Colombia that is probably unique. In Medellin, there is the first university that specializes 100% in the production of explicit adult films. The school was founded by actress Alejandra Omana Ruiz, who has had a successful career in South America under the name Amaranta Hank and has many fans. Now she wants to train other interested students to become performers at her permissive university. In her live classes, she gives practical tips that help aspiring actors perform at their best in front of the camera. But because the business can also be extremely tough and it has many downsides, she also offers courses to help them succeed behind the scenes. For example, she teaches a lesson on how a woman can best protect herself from assaultive men and how to recognize fake and abusive producers. One seminar also deals with how to make the most money as an adult entertainment performer. She got the idea for the special university when she kept getting messages from bored people who wanted to make their private lives a little more interesting, and they asked Amaranta Hank for tips. The students at our next school also have to fight for more acceptance, because while Harry Potter and company are celebrated by fans, the magic students of the Witch School in the USA reportedly experience fierce confrontations with their mainly religious critics. Since the founding of the magic school, almost 290,000 students from over 190 countries have registered and taken part in the seminars. Here, they not only learn everything about tarot cards, healing herbs, or myths, they are also taught in the courses how to make and use magic wands or how spells work. As a rule, the courses take place online, but the Witch School also had its own campus in Houston in the US state of Illinois until a few years ago. There were repeated violent protests against the budding witches, and they were even sprinkled with holy water. This was followed by a move to Chicago and finally even to Salem, Massachusetts, a city that's gained worldwide fame because of its infamous Salem witch trials. In the meantime, this location has also been closed, and the courses are offered exclusively online or broadcast via the company's own online television channels as well as its own radio station. And number 1, according to a study, 30% of all students in the USA who have come out as gay or lesbian are threatened, attacked, or hurt by their fellow students. For this reason, a very special school was founded in New York back in 1985. At Harvey Milk High School in Manhattan, almost exclusively homosexual and transsexual students are taught. Almost all of them were bullied at their old schools and experienced the worst mobbing. Many of them were even disowned by their parents after coming out, and about 10% live in foster homes for this reason. At Harvey Milk High School, for the first time in their lives, they now have a protected place where they can talk to other young people and receive support from their teachers. In seminars and workshops, their self-confidence is strengthened, and in role plays, they learn how to express their feelings properly in critical situations. The high school experienced such strong demand that it was expanded in 2002 and now accommodates over 170 students. With success, 95% of the students graduate, and as many as 60% are accepted to college. Well, that's it for our video. Feel free to write us in the comments which school surprised you the most or at which school you would like to go. Otherwise, like this video if you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time here at Wonderlane.